All right, I'm a couple minutes late. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Wasn't planning on it. At the last minute, I had a few things here and there, making the story up as I'm going along. But we're here now. That's what's important, right? So, hello. Good evening, all you happy people. Welcome to the show. Tonight, we're going to have a little different kind of fun. Tonight, we are going to talk about, well, there's not a lot going on in the entertainment industry, stuff like that. We're getting into the uh, holiday months, so there shouldn't be a lot of big announcements. If they are, they're not going to be, they'll come out of the blue, but it's going to be kind of a quiet month or 2 months until after the new year. So I was trying to think of something that I could uh, talk about tonight. And there's a little game that writers play, at least I do. I don't know if every writer plays it. By the way, can you guys hear me okay? I got the mic slightly set up different tonight because I need to access my keyboard. But try this out. Also, had an ant infestation on my desk, so I've completely cleared my desk off so I have more room. It's just an interesting setup. But, all right, so this is what writers do sometimes. You never know when you're going to get a chance. Oh, thanks, Jay. So you never know when you're going to have a chance to pitch. Somebody calls you up and go, hey, this editor's looking for somebody. And I'll give you a good example. A friend named Sean, years and years ago, told me he was working for this new company that wanted to do a new take on a classic character. And I said, okay, well, what do they have? He says, well, they told me they wanted him to be kind of a cross between James Bond and Captain Jack Sparrow. And I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of a weird combination, but I could probably play with that. And I had basically a day or two to come up with what would end up becoming the series, the 1001 Arabian Nights I did for Zenoscope. That was the mandate I got, was they wanted a James Bond meets Captain Jack Sparrow captain. And I thought, well, I want to play like the X-Men here. And I created this whole crew around him that all had powers and abilities and stuff. And yeah, but I didn't have a lot of time to pitch it. Another time that happened to me was I got a call from William at Avatar. He had just secured the rights to a few horror properties and said, hey, can you put together a pitch for Nightmare on Elm Street? I'm like, yeah, I can. Hey, Triple B, how you doing? But mind you, I had never actually watched any of the Nightmare on Elm Street at that point. So my wife at the time and I drove up and bought a box set and started watching enough to pitch. And this was supposed to be in the Freddy versus Jason universe. And I didn't get that gig, which would have been nice. Hey, Mr. Nope. But the point is that sometimes you get an opportunity to pitch when you don't have a lot of preparation. It's kind of like Batman. Batman can beat anybody given enough time to prepare. But sometimes you're not given that time to prepare. So every once in a while, I'll think about, hey, what if Kevin Feige called me up and wanted me to pitch something? What would I do? Or what if James Gunn called? Or the folks over at Valiant, what would I do for this character or that character? It's a fun little brain teaser exercise. So I thought tonight we would do that. And we would go with the DC universe. And these are kind of my take on 5 DC characters that I would absolutely love to write. And what I would want to do with them. And this doesn't necessarily mean only if James Gunn called, because these stories would work in either the comics, they would work on a movie, they would work on a TV show, they would work in an animated series or movie. But it's just how the theme I'd want to do with each of these characters. And some of them are pretty popular characters, and some of them are a little more obscure. So I've done a little bit of homework to kind of give you a little background on each character. Like I said, some you know. Some are just going to be freaking obvious, especially if you know me. Come on, you all know there's at least one character you guys could probably, if you watch my show, you know he's going to say that guy. And you're right, I do say that guy. But we'll get to him. So if you guys have any questions or comments along the way, feel free to jump in. I will be keeping an eye on the chat as we go. Red Bow. Now Jay's just messing with me. All right, so let's kick this off. Like I said, I did a little research, a little homework just to make sure. I know these characters all pretty well, but sometimes you want to be able to say, okay, this, that, and the other thing. This is the history of the character. So let's start off with one of the strangest DC characters and one of my favorite. This is the Creeper. You guys familiar with the Creeper? Do you know who he is? This is such a fun character. Now, the Creeper is a creation of Steve Ditko's. Yes, Jack Ryder. So he was created in Showcase number 73 in 1968. This is, as Jay pointed out, Jack Ryder. He's a journalist. And to give you a brief history on his origin, and it is definitely an origin from April 1968. Jack was on the case, on the trail of a story having to do with the mob, and he discovers that there's going to be this big meeting at a costume party. Well, Jack has to throw together a costume and finds this box of old costume scraps and stuff, and some yellow face paint or body paint. He finds a pair of strange boots and trunks or shorts. They called them trunks at the time, I believe. A green wig, and this red piece of shag carpet is what they describe it as, the first thing, that he fastens to his back as kind of a shawl / cape. And he goes to this party with the idea that he would be able to record the meeting and use it against the mobster and write his big story. Well, while he breaks into the house of this party, he discovers a scientist named Dr. Yatz. And Dr. Yatz is working on this device. It's a circular little disc that, circular and disc. But anyway, that will give somebody enhanced strength, enhanced speed, agility, and also an enhanced healing factor. Well, they are discovered and Jack is shot. And Yatz, who knows he's also going to die, because I think he's shot as well, puts the device inside of Jack and turns it on. Well, his device is not as clever as he thinks it is, because it kind of mixes and matches, and suddenly the green hair and the yellow skin the makeup becomes skin, and the Creeper is born out of this device. Now, that's the loose interpretation. He's able to go back and forth between the two characters, his regular look and his Creeper look. And he's got a bit of a split personality. They kind of add that as the character goes on. And originally he doesn't, but he starts becoming this more separate. Like when he's the Creeper, it's very different than when he's Jack Ryder. So he's a fascinating character from right there. He looks like a yellow version of the Joker. He's flexible and bendable like Spider-Man, which totally understandable being a Steve Ditko creation again. And the whole idea behind the character is it's this kind of horror take. Yeah, I think Ditko was just trying to do something different, and create something visually stunning. And that's one thing Ditko is great at. All his characters are visually just stunning. I mean, the look of Doctor Strange, the Spider-Man costume, the look of the Creeper and Hawk and Dove, the Question. I mean, such great looking characters. They all stand out like right away. When you look at him, you're like, oh, this guy's different. Jay says the only way the origin would be weirder is if he got super speed from inhaling hard water vapor. Yes. Yeah. Some of the origin stories, it's always fun when I'm talking to Lisa and I'm telling her about a new character and I give kind of the brief comic history and she'll be like, what? Hard water vapor? Or she'll pick on the name of a character. And it's like, really? They went with that? Like, yeah. Wonder Man? Yep. Wonder Man. Anyway, so now the Creeper is a character that I've actually pitched once before. I put together a pitch with, I put a pitch together and I got Tone Rodriguez to do a drawing for it. And I don't know where that drawing is right now. But it's not necessarily the story I would want to do now. But it was a fun idea for a story. And I'm going to tell you what that is before I tell you where I would go now. The original idea I had is that this was at a time when Bruce Wayne took over a lot of media sources and basically owned the station that Jack Ryder worked for. So I had him sending him down to Corto Maltese, which is a popular South American country in the DC Comics. A lot of drug trade is from there, stuff like that. I believe that's what they used in the Suicide Squad, or the movie. But the idea was that Bruce sends Jack Ryder down there through his editors and stuff, not necessarily to cover this, potential revolution as the people are rising up against this dictator. But he actually wanted to send the Creeper down there to cause a little chaos, to initiate change. And that's what happens, is that the Creeper is actually, in this pitch I did, the Creeper is in interviewing the current president, El Presidente, when a group of assassins attack. And Ryder switches to the Creeper and is able to take out the assassins, but not before they completed their job. So El Presidente is killed, but at the moment when the army comes in to see what's going on, what they discover is the Creeper over the body of their dead president. And the way this country works, you kill the president, you become the new president. So the Creeper becomes the president of Corto Maltese. And it was called Creeper El Presidente. And that's the story I was doing. And just him trying to run the country and do all this weird stuff as the Creeper. It was a fun little story. And that's what I originally wanted to do with the Creeper. But what I'd want to do now would be, and I think I've talked about this before, I have this idea to do this odd buddy cop-like story where you take one of the cities in in the DCU, Hub City, not Hub City, but Midway City, something like that, something that doesn't have a big hero. And you have it disappear. You just have it just gone. And what it is it got basically sucked down into hell. And the Creeper is the only one, is in the city at the time and has to try to figure out how to get it returned. But I thought it would be fun to have him teamed up with somebody. And I thought the perfect companion, the perfect buddy cop for the Creeper would be Etrigan the Demon. Character created by Jack Kirby. So right there, you're taking a Kirby creation and a Ditko creation and pushing them together in this story, which I think is just fun. But then you have Etrigan, who I think would constantly be getting fed up with the antics of the Creeper, trying to work with him. I think that would be fun. But also both of them transform. And I think it would be neat if, while the Creeper and the Demon hate each other, just are constantly going at each other while trying to save the day, Jack Ryder and Jason Blood really get along well. So when they transform back, they're like sitting around having a drink, trying to figure out how to do what they got to do. So just to be kind of funny to have that dualistic personality thing. So that's what I'd want to do with the Creeper. I'd want to bring in the Demon. I'd want to focus this story in hell. Like one of the 7 princes of hell or Necron or one of those characters pulled it down, and the Demon and the Creeper have to work together to try to save everybody and everything. And I just think that would be humor. I mean, think of it as like the comic version of Lethal Weapon. That kind of butting heads thing. Or Rush Hour, I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's my first one right there. James Gunn, call me if you like that idea. I can start in the script, DC Comics. I can make that a miniseries like that. All right, moving on. And this is the one that's not going to surprise anyone. I want to write Green Arrow. He's my favorite DC character, has been for a very long time. And I liked the Arrowverse. I liked what Stephen Amell did. I enjoyed it. But as a lot of you guys know, Green Arrow was created back in More Fun Comics number 73, all the way back in November of 1941. He was created by Mort Weisinger, a name we're going to hear again, and George Papp. And basically what happened was DC sitting around going, I'm making money off of these superheroes. Let's get some more. Hey, Mort, can you make me somebody like Batman? And Mort goes, yes, I can. And Batman was inspired by Zorro, so what if we use the Green Arrow or Robin Hood as the inspiration, and you end up with Green Arrow. And in the early years, he was a Batman clone. He had the Arrow Cave, he had the Arrowmobile, he had a sidekick named Speedy. How was Speedy the nickname of Green Arrow's sidekick, where Kid Flash was the sidekick to the Flash? Why wasn't he Speedy? Always wondered that. Seems like they should change names. Anyway, so the thing is that for Green Arrow, like I said, for years he was a Batman clone, and that's kind of what they did with the Arrowverse. You know, they made him very Batman-esque. And yeah, Green Arrow, I mean, Oliver Queen is a millionaire or billionaire, whatever amount of money he has, businessman, all that stuff. It's very similar. His tragic thing in his thing is a shipwreck. His father's dead. His parents are dead. He's shipwrecked on an island. Learns survival skills, including archery. Comes back and becomes a hero. Pretty straightforward. Now, if I was going to do a Green Arrow story, I would want to do the later Green Arrow, the one that was more shaped by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams in the famous run between Green Arrow and Green Lantern, or what Mike Grell did with Longbow Hunters. I think that's where the Green Arrow really came into his own. Also, he's a much more liberal character. You know, it's always fun to pit him against Hawkman, because Hawkman is much more conservative, and it's those two butting heads is always fun. But what I'd want to do with Green Arrow is I'd want to do something like Hush. See, what Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee did with Hush is they created a murder mystery that celebrated everything great about Batman. DC isn't ready for the sidekick name conversation, Dan. No, they're probably not. Probably not. But so what Hush did for me, like I said, it celebrated everything Batman. It revitalized all his villains. It really looked at his allies. It dug into areas that hadn't been played with. And all it did to change the history of Batman was create a character that Bruce knew when he was a boy before his parents died. Now, other comics have come along. It's like, oh, Batman's got a brother. Oh, his parents were part of this evil corp or evil conspiracy, the Court of Owls, that type of thing. And for me, that's like, okay, you guys are pushing it. You know, you don't need to change that much. But Hush just did a little tiny change, introduced a character that he would have met as a boy in an era that we never touched, and it doesn't change the character fundamentally. So years later, when we bring the character back, it makes sense. Well, years later in the story, but that made sense to me. And even hints that they were going to bring back Jason Todd were just that, hints. They didn't actually do that, which I don't think they ever should have. Yeah, I know a lot of people love Red Hood, but there needs to be some characters who die and stay dead. And Uncle Ben, Jason Todd, and Bucky were the three. So I got mixed feelings about Bucky because Winter Soldier is such a cool character. But I think Jason Todd should have stayed dead. Should have stayed that thing that, shook Batman even more after his parents' death, the next thing. But so what I would want to do with Green Arrow is I would want to put him in a murder mystery that would highlight him, that would showcase some of the characters that are part of his past, like Merlin the different archers he's gone up against. Catman is one of his original villains, stuff like that. But I think murder mystery wise, you need to start off with somebody that would be an interesting motivated. I don't want to do somebody too close to him. I don't want to do like Black Canary or something like that. At least not up front. I think I would want to go, I think the character's name is Tom. He was this kind of buddy sidekick for Green Lantern. They had other names for him that I'm not going to use, but if that character was killed, Ollie found out about it, and Hal was off planet and couldn't be reached, because of some intergalactic thing, Ollie would feel it was his duty to step up and find out what's going on. And as the mystery would grow and grow, you would discover that it was somebody going after them from that era where they worked together. And I think that's how I would do it. I would, maybe you have Hal show up at the end. You have, Black Canary pop up, stuff like that. You bring in other characters and stuff. But, you bring Roy in to help him at one point too. But it's basically Ollie following this trail and other people being off, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what I would want to do. I'd want to do a murder mystery like that would tie into the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil run and tie into Green Lantern without Green Lantern being in it. So, and definitely go with the Hush thing. So you bring back a lot of the villains and stuff like that. So that's what I would do with Green Arrow. Did I put up a picture of Green Arrow? I have a picture for Green Arrow. I meant to put up a picture for Green Arrow, and then I forgot. So that's Green Arrow. But you all know who Green Arrow is. I didn't need his picture, right? All right, let's go on to the next one. And again, this may not surprise a lot of people. I mentioned him earlier. He's another Steve Ditko creation. The Question. I love this character. I love this character because he's basically crazy. You're starting to see a theme here, huh? I love Steve Ditko characters that are insane. Things I like about The Question, though. He is this true noir, almost anti-hero. He has his own city, hub city, and he treats it like it's a living entity. He has it talking to him. He senses its emotions. Having him, this guy needs his own movie. Visually, just with the effects now and technology we can do now, you could do somebody, just have them shoot it normally with dots on their face and then remove their face. And it would look amazing. So I don't think I'd even go with a mask. I would just go with removing the features. Now, this character was first created for Charlton Comics in the pages of Blue Beetle #1. And this is the character that inspired Alan Moore to create Rorschach for The Watchmen. So, and you know how crazy that was. So right there, you can tell that this is a fun character. But did you know that the character's name is Vic Sage, and he's another reporter, investigative journalist, but it's not his birth name. His birth name is Charles Victor Zsasz. Not in any way connected to the Batman villain Victor Zsasz. In fact, they spell Zsasz differently. The Question's last name is Szaszz. The serial killer is Zsaszz. But you would think that one of the editors of Shadow the Bat #1, where Victor Zsasz first appeared, would have gone, hey, this is really close to another character we have. But no one told Alan Grant, so he just went with it. All right, so, and you guys know that The Question, no face. But what I think would be fun with this character is go full film noir. Heavy film noir. Almost like Sin City level. You remember The Spirit movie Frank Miller made? That was a little too far, but I think it's that direction, somewhere between Sin City and that. You can really get into it. You make it the dull colors, and you have somebody killing people in the city. And for fun, you make it Victor Zsasz. So you have Victor Zsasz being hired to kill people, to make it look like a serial killer, to get away with it. But you discover later on that they're all connected to one person. There is a conspiracy, because the Question loves conspiracies. So you gotta have one, especially if it turns out they all tie into the mayor. And perhaps all these women are being killed, and you discover that the mayor-elect has got a pretty bad past with women, and he's trying to clean up his mess or something like that. But you give the Question that mystery to chew on, and how he has to be out there protecting his city. The city is crying. The city has tasted blood. It needs justice. You go into that mode. I think it would be just a blast to do. It could be a fun TV series, but I think it would be good as a movie, and I would absolutely love to write it as a comic too. But so the Question is my third. And I do like the idea of Victor Zsasz, because I could see him going, "What do you mean his name is Victor Zsasz? That's my name." And go almost full Rorschach in it. So, okay, let's go on to our fourth character. And our fourth character will surprise many of you, because it's someone who's already had 2 major movies. One did really well. One did not. That's right, Aquaman. So, why would I want to do Aquaman? Well, first off, let's talk about Aquaman. Did you know that Aquaman was created in More Fun Comics number 73? Yes, the same issue as Green Arrow. They appeared in the same issue. They debuted. And he was written by Mort Weisinger again. So Green Arrow and Aquaman are created by the same writer. But he was drawn by Paul Norse. Now, you all know the history of Aquaman, right? Son of a lighthouse keeper and a member of the Atlantean royal family, grows up on land not really knowing about his lineage, eventually discovers it, has to fight his evil brother Orm for the throne of Atlantis. See, what DC did with Jason Momoa was fun. They were good movies. But there's so much more they could do. There was a time when they were doing the Earth One comics. They were retelling like Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and Teen Titans and Green Lantern. And I wanted to do an Aquaman one. And I was actually talking to, why can't I think of his name? Damn. Mike Mayhew. Mike Mayhew had done a cover for me for The Unusual Suspects when I did the book for the Hero Initiative, and we became friends. And we've met up for lunch a few times, stuff like that. And we talked about trying to do something together. We also did the book Savage together. And he was over at DC, and we were talking about pitching together. And that was my idea to pitch, was Aquaman Earth One. But he just got super busy. So we didn't get a chance to pitch it. But what I wanted to do you guys remember there was a TV series on HBO called Rome? And it starred, I'm going to... Ray, the guy that just passed away. He was the Punisher at one point. He was in Ahsoka. Ray Stevenson and Kevin McKidd. And they played two lower swords. I'm good, Ed. Glad you can make it. You might want to watch this from the beginning when you get a chance, but you're good hanging out too. So, but I'm basically covering characters I would love to write for DC, but whether in the DC universe or in comics. So Aquaman is what we're talking about right now. The television series Rome with Kevin McKidd and Ray Stevenson. Stevenson or Stevens? Stevenson? Stevenson. I loved Rome because you saw it from multiple levels. You saw it from the soldier level, and then you saw it from the Caesar and the families, and you saw it from different levels of society. And that's how I would want to do Aquaman. I'd want to make it like telling a Roman story. I'd want Atlantis to feel like Rome in a lot of ways, because it almost feels like it was part of the Roman Empire before it sank, that type of thing. I'd want to have Arthur Curry not know anything about his, my opening would be Orm's father dies. He's about to take the throne from his mother. He's plotting to kill his mother, but discovers that there's another child out there. So he sends assassins, and Mira discovers or oversees this and tries to get out to the lighthouse. She works with the queen, but tries to get out to the lighthouse beforehand and rescue Arthur or get him away, but doesn't make it in time. Ends up, they get attacked, Arthur gets hurt, and she takes him in the water to save him. So that would be Arthur's introduction to his lineage. And we find out that his father hadn't really said anything, that he didn't know what happened to his mother. She said this great stuff about being, from another world, but he didn't know whether to believe it. And then just one day she was gone. They lived together, that she had the baby, and then one day she was just gone. And what is that the Atlanteans kidnapped her back, not knowing that she had a son. So similar to what we got in the comics, but more mysterious, more political, more, lean into the politics of Rome and Orm wanting to take over. That would be the direction I'd want to go with it. I'd want that Aquaman needed to raise an army to go against his brother. Like I said, I would just get in much. Jason Momoa films were fun, and he was a fun character. But like I said, I would want to lean more into the feelings of Rome. Like I said, I would want to go a little more adult, a little more serious, and that's what I would do with Aquaman. All right. So now we've got a few people watching. I want you all to take a guess at my fifth character. I'll even give you a clue. It was a character that was created in the 1980s. I fell in love with the character after buying the first issue. Shining Knight, interesting choice. Who else has got a guess? And Triple B, you guys out there? I give you another 30 seconds. Be impressed if anybody comes up with it. It's a character who's gone through some big changes since his creation. Raven? Oh, nice guess. But no, I did say his creation, so it's not Raven. The Vigilante, the Western Vigilante, nice. I did start buying the original Vigilante comic when it first came out. Absolutely loved it. That was another one I loved. I remember in my teens, any new book got my attention because it's like, I'm getting on board now. I'm, from the beginning. So, but this one also clicked with me because the character has my name, my first name. That's the last clue you get. Rorschach. Doing Rorschach would be like doing the question. And the question's on the list earlier. So, all right, folks, are you ready? My final character for my list, Blue Devil, Daniel Cassidy. Hollywood stuntman, builds himself a high-tech suit and then gets fused inside of it. It's kind of an Iron Man story in a way. Hollywood stuntman, special effects guy. So from that point of view, he's a fun character. And you've never heard of Blue Devil. He's still around. What team is he part of? Is it Justice League Dark? I think that's he's Detective Chimp and Swordsmaster and Enchantress. I think Constantine's part of it. He's a bouncer at a bar now. That's right. They did introduce Blue Devil in the Swamp Thing movie or TV show from 2019. Ian Ziering was going to play him, which I thought was interesting. Blue Devil is this great character. Like I said, he's a Hollywood stuntman and effects guy, builds his own suit, and ends up being fused inside of it. Now, not the only time that's happened to a character. If you guys remember my buddy Steve Niles, yes, the guy from 90210. My buddy Steve Niles created a character called Fused, which was about a guy who went into a big mech suit like that and got stuck inside. But in that one, it's more of a horror thing, and the body actually gets destroyed, leaving the consciousness in the suit. Well, this Dan's inside, and he wants to get out. He's trying to figure out how to get out, and he becomes a reluctant hero. And then later in his history, he ends up making a deal with Necron that turns him into an actual demon. So it's an interesting character. Dan Garrett's an interesting thing, but that's from way back in the 30s and 40s. And Dan Turpin, doing a story about Dan Turpin would be interesting, but nope. Blue Devil. Yeah. This one I think would be lighter. I would tend to go more humor in this one. In a way, it sounds kind of like what they're doing with Wonder Man, But this would be kind of a behind the Hollywood thing. Um, you know, about him getting stuck in the suit would be interesting. But also, I think I would stick with him in the suit, and at the end, have him trying to make the deal, the magical deal to get out of it. And instead it turns him into the demon. So that's where it ends. And then you come back for a sequel. But yeah, I think Blue Devil would be an absolute blast. The problem with doing the comic would be he's already gone through all that. And this is one of the few characters I would really want to go from the beginning on. A lot of them, I think you could just jump right in. The Creeper, you could skip the origin. It's a horrible origin. The Question, nobody cares about the Question doesn't really even have an origin, does he? So you move on from there. But Blue Devil, you want to go with the original story because it's such an important part of the character, and nobody knows of it. And this would be a fun animated movie or animated series. But yeah, I think this one would be a blast, and I think it would fit really well into the DCU that James Gunn has been playing with. So you guys know why that Swamp Thing series was canceled, right? It's the dumbest reason. Because of tax credits. They set it up to film, I think it was in South Carolina, and they were getting a bunch of these big tax credits to make it affordable to make the series. And then those tax credits got pulled, and it just didn't make financial sense to do any more of it. So they ended up, and they knew it. So it was canceled before it even debuted. Wilmington, North Carolina. There it is, North Carolina, not South Carolina. I was in the general area. For most people outside of the Carolinas, there is only one. That's why it's the Carolina Panthers, not the North Carolina Panthers. Because South Carolina will never get a football team. So those are my 5 characters that I would love to write. They're characters that mean a lot to me, and I would have fun with. I think I could tell a unique story with. And that's the thing, is when you, as a writer, when you are looking at a character, what you need to do is look at the heart of the character. You just don't go, oh, I want to do this story, and you make, whatever character they hand you fit. It is a lot of writers who do that, especially working today. What you have to do is figure out what makes that character tick. What is it about that character that made them popular, that made them have an audience, what made them last however long they've been around? And play with that, explore that. You don't just, come in and go, oh, I want to do a Batman story, but I want him, to be a serial killer. What? Let's see. Okay, Jay got me watching it on Roku for free. I got to have some food and Roku dropped. Oh, I can't believe they dropped it. Damn. Do you still have the notes for the Jack of Hearts story we were writing? I do. I, of course, still do. And if Marvel ever called me up, Kevin Feige called me up, Jack of Hearts would be right there as one of my early pitches. Someone share the video and tag Gunn. I already got my 1 like from him on there, so I probably won't ever happen again. So I should probably say I love what James Gunn is doing with the DC universe. And this is not to butter him up or kiss his ass. But he's doing what I'm talking about. His Superman is a study of what makes the character endearing, endure as well. I mean, why is he still around? Why do we still buy Superman comics and merchandise and stuff like that? And it's because of the hope. It's because of the majesty, and it's what he really tapped into in the movie, and it's what he does in all his stuff. The fact that we all care about a tree and a talking raccoon is a tribute to Gunn getting to know his characters or creating the characters. I mean, I've read some Rocket Raccoon stuff. There wasn't much to go with there. But when it came to like Star-Lord, things like that, or when you go into the DC stuff, what he did with Creature Commandos. There are people who are using GI Robot as their avatar now and becoming a big group to protect people, to stand up to people being bullied. There are, The Bride is popular now. I've got the DC Worlds Collide game on my phone I play, and the popular characters that I play that I love are the DCU Superman, the Vigilante, Peacemaker, Judo Master, Mr. Terrific from the DCU, Guy Gardner, uh, Weasel, Dr. Phosphorus, and the Bride. All characters that are popular now because of what James Gunn has been doing with them. There's a regular version of Superman in there. I don't have that one. I've got the DCU version. Those are the fun characters. And it's because Gunn is making them fun. He's finding the hearts of the characters and making you care about them. I think that's the key to writing. That's the key to success. That's what I would do as a writer. If I got that call from Gunn or Feige or Tom Brevoort or anybody else, is you sit down and you see what makes that character tick and you expand on it. You don't try to reinvent the wheel. You don't try to take the square peg and put it into a round hole just because, that's the story I want to tell. You let the character dictate the story. And you do it when you're writing too. When I write my novels and stuff, I'm working on Chaos Game right now. So many times, I just wrote an entire chapter covering the first time Jimmy Doyle meets Sebastian Lee, Captain Sebastian Lee, or Detective Sebastian Lee. I had never thought of what that story would be, why I would use it, but at that moment in the story, it fit. It made sense that is what needed to be told right there. And it's because I let the characters speak. So yeah, I've got ideas for these characters, but the bottom line is, if you know who these characters are, you could tell any story. As long as you're true to the characters. And that's what Kevin Feige does, that's what James Gunn does. And I've seen it go astray. I don't know. I think Zack Snyder was focused on the 80s and the anti-hero era. So the all-powerful Superman, the super dark Batman, that was kind of his thing. But you got to look at the entire breadth of a character. What made them click? Where did they come from? What was the original idea? What did Mort Weisinger or Steve Ditko or Jack Kirby have in mind when it started? Where did it go from there? you got to embrace all of it to make it work. So, all right, guys, wow, I filled up that hour pretty well. Got a couple minutes left. Anybody have any questions, comments? Any characters you're surprised I didn't suggest? Or any character you guys go, you should be writing that guy? And as always, if there's a topic you guys want me to cover, I don't know what I'm going to do with next week. So if you got something, let me know. Let's see. Ed says, so I heard Alan Richardson is cast in DC, but not Batman. Any guesses who he might be? Dan Wickling's Ambush Bug. I don't know much about Ambush Bug. I know the character. I would jump at it, the chance, but I would have to do some research. Oh, Wildcat. Wildcat would be awesome. Wildcat would be a good fit for Alan Richardson. But what the actual story is Alan Richardson was being interviewed and they were asking about the Batman thing, how he said that he wasn't going to be Batman. And he admitted that he is in discussions with DC, but told them instead of Batman, he would like to play a messier character. He had a specific kind of personality he wants to play. Now, and supposedly he's in regular discussions with them. He's not officially cast. He's in talks. Now, what that character is, where it would appear, it would make sense if it's somebody who would show up in Salvation Run or in Man of Tomorrow or Lanterns or something like that, because then it would make sense to cast him. But if it's something that is far off, they may not even cast him for a while. So it really comes down to what he's going to be in and what the character is. But a messier character, it sounds like he wants to go darker, more anti-hero. You know, he would make an interesting Deathstroke. He would make an interesting Ted Grant. Also, does he want to play a hero? He played Aquaman on Smallville. He's played Hawk on Teen Titans, or the Titans series. Would he really want to be another hero? And then Jack Reacher is a hero as well, but he's a very, messy hero in a lot of ways. Would he want to be more of a Reacher type character? I don't think he would do Hawk again. I don't think he'd do Aquaman again. It wouldn't surprise me if he decided to go a villain. Solomon Grundy would be interesting. I could totally see that. Mongol. Bane. He's big enough to be Bane. Probably not the right ethnicity, but there's a lot of characters I think he could pull off. But again, he hasn't been officially cast. So the fact he hasn't been officially cast means, if he was officially cast, that would narrow it down a lot, because then we could go, well, there's only these certain movies, so it's got to be somebody in one of those movies. But the fact that he's just in talks, he could be anybody at this point. So we got to get a little more information before we can really narrow it down. But he could be a hero, he could be a villain, he could be Dan Turpin. He could be Bibbo in the next Superman movie. And James Gunn's the type to put Bibbo in the movie. Right? Come on. And if you don't know who Bibbo is, he's a Superman supporting character. Crazy Quilt. There you go. Yeah. Great. He's going to be Condiment King. Oh, that would be hilarious. You know, what if he wants to play an intellectual character? What if he doesn't want to be just the brute? What if he wants to play an intellectual character? You know, maybe he wants to be Vandal Savage. Hello, Jonathan. Yes, I said the word Condiment King. But yeah, so I think it'll be something unique for him. See, that's the thing is every time I see these fan casts, they're always taking someone who's playing a character, a superhero character, and putting them in as the same basic character over here. You know, they keep talking about the Reverse Flash and who'd be the perfect Reverse Flash. Well, of course, the guy playing Homelander. Do you think Anthony Starr wants to play the same role again? The new one that people are talking about, the guy that plays Bullseye, he'd be a perfect Reverse Flash. Do you think he wants to do a villain again? Elongated man who is adult film. Ed, remember, family show. Just saying. So yeah, I could see Alan Richardson popping up as a lot of different characters, but I think it's going to be something very different from what he's played before. Because why would he want to do the same thing again? You know, I mean, there are some actors who just that's their thing. They play this role and they do it well. Jason Statham. Jason Statham is Jason Statham in every movie. Could you imagine if he came out with a romantic comedy where he played a guy that couldn't fight? He was an accountant. Would you go see that Jason Statham in that? Opposite, I don't know. I wanted to say the person who was on The Mandalorian, but got canceled. Anyway, I think there's a good chance that Alan Richardson shows up in the DCU, but I think it'll be a very different character. Orion absolutely could work. Plus, now see, okay, and you might be on something there, because one of the things in production right now, and I don't know where it is in the production, is a Mr. Miracle animated series. And Orion could show up in that, in which case you'd have to cast the voice, and they want to cast people who then could play the characters in live action. So Alan Richardson voicing Orion in the Mr. Miracle animated series would make a lot of sense. And then have him come in if they ever need to do a live action one. So yeah, Orion could really nail it, but then maybe he wants to play Darkseid. You know? So but Orion is a good fit for him physically. He is a messier character. And casting him right now would make sense. So you might be onto something there, bud. So, all right, guys, I've got to go. Dinner's going to be ready soon. I will be back next Sunday. I'm going to try to keep doing this show on a regular basis. So please tell your friends. You know, Sunday after the football games, you guys want to talk some comics, want to talk the latest stuff, I'll be here. Yeah, my Panthers lost, so we didn't talk about them in the beginning. But I'll be back next week. If you guys have any ideas what you want us to talk about, any topics you want me to cover, just comment on this or hit me up on social media. We'll see what we can do. Well, Jonathan, I'm here at 4 o'clock Pacific time. I'll be here next week, and this will be available on YouTube, Facebook, and stuff to rewatch. So if you want to jump in, we'll do the rewatch. But please come back next Sunday. Would love to have you. All right, everybody, have a great night. Ed, Jay, Triple B, Jonathan, all of you guys, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. Have a terrific week and take care, everybody. Good night.